Hey there, and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
So have you ever thought about what happens when your tenant's lease is up? I mean, it can be a little daunting, right?
Yeah, definitely. Lease renewals can be one of those tricky parts of property management. You want to keep your good tenants, but also maximize your investment.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into some effective lease renewal strategies that can help you navigate this process with confidence.
We'll cover everything from how to approach your tenants about renewing their lease, to understanding the market conditions that might influence your decisions.
Plus, we'll discuss some common pitfalls to watch out for, and how to create a win-win situation for both you and your tenants.
That's right. It's all about building those long-term relationships while ensuring your investment stays profitable.
So, whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, we've got some practical tips lined up for you today.
Let's get into it, shall we?
Absolutely. So first off, let's talk about the importance of communication with your tenants.
You know, Sarah, when we talk about lease renewal strategies, it's really important for folks over 40 to grasp why this matters right now. I mean, the landscape has shifted a lot in recent years, hasn't it?
Absolutely, Mike. I think many people in that age group are starting to think more seriously about retirement and how their investments will support that lifestyle.
Exactly. It's not just about having a paycheck anymore. It's about ensuring those assets can provide for them in the long run. I've seen investors who are around that age really start to focus on stabilizing their income through reliable lease agreements.
Right. And with inflation being a concern, having fixed, long-term leases can really protect against those rising costs. It's like a buffer, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I remember working with a client, let's call him Tom. He had a couple of properties but was feeling uneasy about the future. We dove into his lease strategies, and he realized that by renewing leases with reliable tenants, he could hedge against inflation while ensuring a steady cash flow.
That's such a good point. Securing those long-term tenants can really provide peace of mind, especially when you think about market volatility.
Exactly. And let's not forget the emotional side of it all. Many people over 40 feel this weight of financial security, and property can be a solid foundation for that.
For sure. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about feeling stable, knowing that your hard work is paying off.
Right. And I think with the current economic trends, it's crucial to look at how property values are fluctuating. You want to make sure you're not just holding on to a property for sentimental reasons, but also for its financial viability.
I totally agree. I mean, I've heard stories of investors who, out of attachment, held on to properties longer than they should have, only to see their value decline. It's tough, but sometimes you have to make those hard decisions.
Exactly, and that's where lease renewal strategies come in. They can help you maximize the potential of your existing properties. It's like a safety net, isn't it?
Yes, and thinking ahead to wealth transfer for family is also key. You want to ensure that the properties you pass down are not just a burden, but rather an asset that can continue to grow in value.
That's a huge consideration. If you have properties that are well managed and generating income, they can be a lasting legacy for your kids or grandkids. You want them to have something solid, especially in a world where markets can be unpredictable.
I think that's something a lot of listeners might resonate with. They want to know that their investments are secure and that they're not leaving a mess behind for their family.
Exactly. And with the changing demographics, there's a huge opportunity to cater to the needs of renters today. People are looking for flexibility. And if you can create a lease structure that appeals to that, you'll have a much easier time keeping good tenants.
That's so true. I mean, younger generations value different things compared to older ones. They might prefer shorter leases or flexibility in terms of moving out.
Right. And that's where being proactive comes into play. If you know that a tenant is happy, you can approach them about renewing their lease well ahead of time. This can save you the hassle of searching for new tenants, which can be stressful, especially when the market is tight.
Definitely. And I think educating tenants about their lease options can also help. You know, if they feel informed and valued, they're more likely to stick around.
Absolutely. It's about building relationships. A lot of landlords focus on the financial side of things, but they forget the human element. If your tenants feel respected, they're more likely to renew.
That's a great point. And a solid renewal strategy can also involve small upgrades or improvements that make the property even more appealing.
Yes. Little things like fresh paint or upgraded appliances can make a big difference. It shows the tenants that you care about their living space, which can lead to longer lease terms.
And ultimately, that leads to better financial stability for the landlord, right?
Exactly. It's a win-win. Plus, if you've got a good relationship with your tenants, they're more likely to take care of the property too.
That's so important. I've heard horror stories of landlords who had to deal with neglected properties because tenants didn't feel invested.
Exactly. And that emotional side of financial security can't be underestimated. If you know your properties are well maintained and your tenants are happy, it gives you that peace of mind.
And for people over 40, that's invaluable. They've worked hard their whole lives, and they deserve to feel secure about their investments.
Well said. So as we move forward, let's talk about some core strategies that can really help listeners implement these lease renewal tactics effectively. So Sarah, when we're diving into lease renewal strategies, one of the first things to consider is how to assess whether you should renew a lease or look for new tenants.
Yeah, that's a good point. What are the key factors you look at when making that decision?
Well, I usually start with the rental market trends in the area. If rents have gone up significantly since the lease was signed, it might be a good opportunity to raise the rent for the new lease. Conversely, if the market is declining, it could be better to keep the existing tenant, even if it means a slightly lower rent.
Right, so keeping an eye on the local market is crucial. What about the condition of the property?
Absolutely. You want to assess how well the tenant has maintained the property. If they've taken good care of it, that's a huge plus. It saves you money on maintenance and repairs, which can be a big deal, especially if you're considering a new tenant who might not take as good care of it.
That makes sense. So how do you determine what rent to charge for a lease renewal?
That's where the 1% rule comes in handy. It's a simple guideline that suggests your monthly rent should be about 1% of the property's total value. So if your property is worth $300,000, you'd aim for a rent of around $3,000 a month.
Got it. And that's just a starting point, right? You'd still want to compare it to what's happening in the market.
Exactly. You can't rely solely on that rule, but it's a solid baseline. Plus, I like to use the 50% rule for expenses. It's a simple way to estimate your operating expenses. So if you're bringing in $3,000 in rent, you can expect to spend about $1.500 on expenses. That helps you see your potential cash flow.
That's super useful. And what about evaluating the property itself?
Well, I always say, do a thorough property inspection before you renew a lease. Check for any wear and tear that might need addressing. If you find issues, you can negotiate repairs with the tenant or set expectations for how they'll maintain the property moving forward.
So if you find some issues, do you bring that up during the lease renewal discussions?
Yes, for sure. Communication is key here. You can say something like, hey, I noticed some wear on the carpet. Let's discuss how we can address that. It keeps the lines open and shows you're invested in maintaining the property.
And what about the financial aspects? If a tenant wants to negotiate rent, how do you handle that?
Well, that's where it gets tricky. I usually have a cap rate in mind. For example, if your cap rate is around 7%, you're looking at a certain return on investment. If a tenant is asking for a lower rent, you need to calculate if that impacts your overall return. Sometimes, it might be worth it to keep a reliable tenant at a lower rate than risking a vacancy.
That's a smart approach. So, keeping that cap rate in check helps you stay focused on your investment goals.
Exactly. And don't forget to consider the tenant's history. If they've been consistent with payments and responsible, that's a big factor. Trustworthy tenants can sometimes be worth a little less rent.
Yeah, I can see how the reliability factor comes into play. What about lease terms? Do you recommend varying them?
Sure, I often suggest offering both short-term and long-term lease options. Some tenants prefer flexibility, while others want stability. You can even consider a 1-year lease with an option to renew for another year at a slightly higher rate, which gives you both some security.
That's a great idea. It gives you a chance to adjust rent based on the market without locking you into a long-term commitment.
Exactly. And don't forget about the communication part during this process. Keep your tenants in the loop about any upcoming changes in the market or your plans for the property. It helps build trust.
Speaking of building trust, how do you handle rent increases?
Good question. I recommend giving tenants plenty of notice, usually at least 60 days. You can explain the reasons for the increase, like rising property taxes or maintenance costs. Transparency goes a long way.
That's true. It can definitely soften the blow if they understand the reasoning behind it.
Right. And sometimes, Offering a small upgrade or improvement when you raise the rent can make a big difference. Maybe you could install new appliances or do some landscaping.
Oh, that's smart. It shows that you're willing to invest in your property and care about their living experience.
Exactly. And if you're considering new tenants, I always recommend running a background check and calling previous landlords. It helps you avoid potential headaches down the road.
Yeah, it's better to be thorough upfront than to deal with issues later. Do you have a checklist for evaluating potential tenants?
Sure. I look at income verification, rental history, credit score, and any references they provide. The 3X rule is a good guideline. Their monthly income should be at least 3 times the rent.
That's a practical approach. It gives you a good sense of their financial stability.
And, you can also ask about their lifestyle. Do they have pets? How many people live with them? That sort of thing. It can give you insight into their reliability as a tenant.
Good points. So, once you've renewed the lease or brought in a new tenant, what are some ongoing things to keep in mind?
Regular communication is key. I like to check in with tenants every few months. Just a quick message to see how they're doing. It can help you catch any issues early and shows you care about their experience.
That makes so much sense. Keeping that relationship strong can lead to longer tenancies, which is always a win.
Exactly. And remember, while you want to keep your tenants happy, you also need to make sure you're protecting your investment.
Right. It's all about balance.
Speaking of balance, let's talk about some common pitfalls investors can fall into when it comes to lease renewals. So, one of the biggest pitfalls I see investors falling into is over-leveraging. It can seem like a great idea at first, right? You borrow as much as you can to buy that shiny new property, but then you're stretched too thin.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tempting. You get excited about the potential returns, but then what happens when the unexpected hits?
Exactly. I had a client, let's call him Tom, who did just that. He found a great duplex, and, he was convinced he could rent it out for top dollar. So he maxed out his mortgage to buy it. But then, right after he closed, one of the units turned out to be a total disaster.
Oh no, what went wrong?
Well, he discovered hidden issues, like plumbing problems and mold. He ended up spending thousands on repairs. And, with those extra costs, his cash flow was wiped out. He was barely breaking even, and he couldn't even afford to hire a property manager.
That's tough. So how could he have spotted those issues before jumping in?
A thorough inspection would have helped, for sure. But also, he could have asked more questions about the property's history. Sometimes, sellers aren't completely upfront about issues that might have lingered.
Right. And that's a good reminder for investors to dig deeper. It's not just about the property itself, but also the surrounding area, right?
Absolutely. Another common mistake is ignoring cash flow. Some investors get so caught up in the potential appreciation of a property that they forget to look at whether it's actually generating income.
I assume that can lead to some really tough situations if you're relying on that income to pay bills or mortgages.
For sure. I had another client, let's call her Lisa. She bought a property in an up-and-coming neighborhood, thinking it would appreciate quickly, but the rental market was super soft, and she ended up with a long vacancy period.
That sounds stressful.
It was. She thought she could wait it out for the market to improve, but the longer it sat vacant, the more it ate into her finances. She didn't have a buffer for those months without rent, which really hurt her.
So what's the lesson there?
Always factor in cash flow first. Make sure you have a solid understanding of what you can realistically rent it for, and have a plan for those months when it might sit empty.
And what about the timing of the market? I know people think they can time it perfectly, but...
That's another slippery slope, Sarah. I can't tell you how many times I've seen investors wait for that ideal moment, only to miss out.
Like, they're waiting for prices to drop, right?
Exactly. I had a friend who was convinced that prices would fall. He kept waiting, thinking he'd get a steal. But when he finally decided to pull the trigger, prices had risen significantly. He ended up paying way more than he would have if he'd just bought earlier.
Wow, so it's really about being proactive rather than trying to predict the future.
Yes, and there's always going to be some level of uncertainty. You can't let fear or the desire to find the perfect moment keep you from making a sound investment.
You mentioned hidden costs earlier. What do you mean by that?
Hidden costs can really sneak up on you. Things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, or even special assessments can add up quickly. A friend of mine purchased a property thinking his expenses would be manageable, but he didn't account for a significant increase in property taxes after the sale.
That must have been a shock.
It was. He had budgeted for the mortgage and some upkeep, but when those taxes came in, it almost derailed his entire plan.
So how do investors prepare for those hidden costs?
It's crucial to do your homework. Ask questions, talk to other landlords in the area, and review historical data on property taxes. Also, set aside a contingency fund, like at least 10 to 15% of your expected expenses, for those surprises that always seem to pop up.
That's such a good tip. And what about tenants? I imagine bad tenants can be a huge headache.
Absolutely, Sarah. I've seen investors who were so eager to fill a vacancy that they didn't properly vet their tenants. I had a client who rented to someone without a background check, just to get the unit filled.
Oh no. What happened?
Well, that tenant ended up causing significant damage to the property and stopped paying rent after just a couple of months. It took my client months to evict them, and thousands in repairs.
That's heartbreaking. It really emphasizes the importance of doing due diligence.
Totally. Always check references, credit history, and rental history. You want someone who not only can pay, but also respects the property.
And if they're showing red flags during the application process, like inconsistent income or a bad rental history, right?
Exactly. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
So for someone who's listening and thinking, okay, I've made some of these mistakes, what are some next steps they can take to recover or avoid these pitfalls in the future?
First off, don't beat yourself up. Everyone makes mistakes. The key is to learn from them. Review your current investments, assess where you might have gone wrong, and create a plan moving forward.
That sounds reasonable. And maybe consider seeking advice from others who have been in the game longer, right?
Definitely. Networking can be invaluable. Join local real estate groups or find a mentor who can provide guidance based on experience.
Great advice, Mike. So it's really about being proactive, doing your research, and surrounding yourself with the right people.
Exactly. And remember, real estate investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build wealth, but with the right strategies and mindset, you can definitely get there. All right, Sarah, let's dive into some immediate steps and tools our listeners can use right now to kickstart their lease renewal strategies.
Absolutely, Mike. I think a good starting point is encouraging everyone to really analyze their current leases. Take a close look at the terms and see what's working and what isn't.
Yeah, and a great tool for that is using something like Rentometer. It helps you compare rental prices in your area, so you can gauge if your current rent is in line with the market.
That's a good one. You can also use Zillow to look at similar properties and see what they're renting for. Just a quick search can give you a lot of insight.
Right, and if you're considering renewing with a rent increase, it's important to have data to back that up. You can show your tenants that their rent is still competitive.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of tools, have you heard of the Bigger Pockets calculator? It's fantastic for analyzing potential investment properties, but you can also use it to project future cash flows based on different rent scenarios.
That's a powerful tool for sure. Plus, if you're looking at potential new properties to invest in, using DealCheck can give you a detailed analysis, including cash flow, ROI, and property value projections.
Speaking of investments, a lot of people might be hesitant to jump into real estate or start negotiating lease renewals. What can they do to build their confidence?
Great question, Sarah. I recommend starting small. Maybe analyze one deal a week, or even just one lease renewal process. It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Yeah, and that practice will build your confidence over time. Also, joining a local real estate meetup can really help. You can share experiences and learn from others who have been in similar situations.
And don't forget about online resources. There are countless podcasts and books that can provide practical advice. For instance, the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner is a fantastic resource. It covers a lot of the foundational knowledge you need.
Oh, that's a classic. And for podcasts, I'd recommend Bigger Pockets Podcast. They have tons of episodes that focus specifically on real estate investing strategies and tips.
Absolutely. Those are great recommendations. And, it can be really beneficial to keep a journal of your learning. Just jot down what you learn each week, or even your thoughts on your current leases and properties.
That sounds like a good habit to develop. It's a way to track your progress and also reflect on what you want to achieve in your investing journey.
Exactly. And as people start digging into their leases, they might want to create a checklist. Like, what are the key points to review in their lease agreements? That could include things like the renewal terms, any maintenance responsibilities, and rent increase caps.
That's super practical. Having a checklist can make the review process much smoother. Plus, it keeps you organized and focused on what's important.
And for those who are really serious about making the most of their rental properties, consider setting up alerts on local MLS listings. That way, you can stay updated on market trends and new rental opportunities.
Oh, that's a clever idea. It keeps you in the loop and ready to act when the right opportunity comes along.
And remember, building wealth through real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about consistent, small steps.
Right. And as you're starting out, just remember to be patient with yourself. Every little bit of progress counts.
Definitely. And it's also about mindset. Surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals and seeking out mentorship can really boost your confidence and knowledge.
That's a great point. Finding a mentor who can guide you through the ins and outs of lease negotiations and property management can make a big difference.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together. Well, Sarah, that was quite a deep dive into lease renewal strategies, right?
Absolutely, Mike. So many valuable insights. If I had to summarize a few key takeaways.
Yeah, let's do that. The first one, I think, is really understanding the timing, like when to start discussions about lease renewals. It's crucial to get ahead of the curve.
Right. And then there's the importance of building a good relationship with your tenants. Keeping that communication open can make all the difference when it comes to renewals.
Exactly. And don't forget about the market research part. Knowing what's happening in the market can help you set the right terms and keep your property attractive.
Oh, and I loved the point about being flexible. Sometimes being open to negotiations can lead to better outcomes for both parties.
Yeah, that flexibility can really ease tensions and foster goodwill. It's all about mutual benefit.
Totally. So for anyone listening, keep these strategies in mind as you navigate your investment journey. Building wealth through real estate is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Well said, Sarah. And remember, it's all about making informed decisions and staying proactive. That's how you set yourself up for long-term success.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to drop a comment. We want to hear your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have.
Yeah, and if you know someone over 40 who's interested in investing in property, share this episode with them. We're all about helping others on their journey.
And speaking of journeys, next time we'll dive into pet policies, exploring the profit versus the problems that can come with it.
Definitely a hot topic.
So, until then, keep those investment dreams alive.
Yeah, take care, everyone, and happy investing.
Bye for now.